Early in my career, I worked for a small but mighty construction consulting company. And one day we decided to consider putting our services online. I got really excited. My head shot up and I wanted to get involved in this project. So a few days later, I'm looking at different platforms and solutions to help host our online services. And then I run into this CRM company I've never heard of that looks pretty good. But lo and behold, I find that one of my friends already works there, and I call him up and ask him for lunch and say, "Hey, love to meet up and learn about this product. We're thinking about using it for our online services." During that lunch, halfway through, my friend stops me and he says, "Hey, Zezo, have you ever thought about solution engineering? I think you'd be really great at it. You should look at the SE roles at our company." And then I looked at him and said, "What the heck is a solution engineer? That sounds really cool." Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. My name is Zezo Hassan, and I'm a lead solution engineer at Salesforce for data and AI solutions. I've been a solution engineer for 4 years, and that was a story about how I first heard about the role. I've been consistently a top performer in my team, and I come from a non-traditional background like construction and civil engineering and customer support. So I've decided to make this short video series about the solution engineering role and career path to help prospective solution engineers interested in this role. So in this video, we're going to focus on a few things, starting with the basics. What is a solution engineer? What does a typical day in the life look like? How does the hybrid nature of technical business sides come together? And then finally wrap up with some of the great traits that I've seen some great SEs have. Thanks for being here today, and let's get started. All right, so I'll begin by talking about my definition of what a solution engineer is. And if you've already started looking into the role and researching, I'm sure you've learned about how solution engineers are technical experts. They work closely with sales. They help bridge the gap between technical needs and with sales. So help uncover what the customer needs and provide a tailored solution. How I like to think about it is starting with the title, solution engineer. Now, it's a very cool title, as you've heard from my story, and it's definitely not the type of engineer my parents wanted me to be, and boy, did they let me know it. But I like to think of it as an application of the word engineer. When I was studying civil engineering, we were really applying math and science to solve for civil needs, like roads, bridges, or buildings. I think of it the same way with solution engineering. We're using a specific expertise in technology and in business and in people who use that technology to perform these business and operations. And then we apply and use that knowledge into solving for different business needs. So we can work in a specific industry and we'll have 10 different customers come to us for either 10 different situations or the exactly same problem, but we're solving it in different ways because every business is different. They have different technology. They're applying it in different ways. And really the role of the solution engineer is to connect those dots, ultimately making sure the customer walks away from the deal with a ton of value and the objectives that they wanted to achieve. I actually remember the very first deal cycle that I worked as a solution engineer. So it really brought all of this together. And it was a small company in the insurance industry or insurance adjacent, and they wanted to revamp and digitize their entire customer support operations. So it was right up my alley. I was able to use all my accumulated knowledge so far. So I had in-depth knowledge about the technology, the CRM, and I had knowledge and understanding about the insurance industry and how what the agents need to perform their work, as well as what the customers are looking for. So I understood the experiences from the different sides of their project. And I had my own personal experiences in customer support that I was able to build on. So all of this specific expertise and knowledge that I had, I was able to apply for this very specific and unique circumstance for that small insurance company to help them achieve their objectives and digitizing their customer support operations. So that's my take at defining what a solution engineer is and what they do. Really, it's the application of technology, knowledge about business and people to help solve for different business needs. All right, so let's talk about the technical and business nature of a solution engineer, because you'll often get that a lot. Solution engineers need to be both. They need to work with sales as well as be technical. So let's take a look at that. Now, I want to take it a step beyond the basic definition of the role and really talk about the anatomy of what makes up this solution engineering profession. What I'm about to share next, I learned from my very first solution engineering manager. They gave me this absolute paradigm shift and allowed me to focus my efforts in a way that took my craft to the next level and continuously helped to serve me today. So I like to break down the anatomy of the solution engineering role into three different pillars. Now, from what we discussed, those are very obvious pillars. So we'll start with the technical pillar. Of course, this covers all the technical knowledge. That contains product specific knowledge for the company that you're working for. It also can expand to include domain expertise. Perhaps you have a niche for a specific operation like service versus marketing. And then there's also the broader level of technology, just understanding how technical infrastructure and architecture should work in general for any given company. There's always going to be a data layer, some sort of business logic layer, and of course, the people layer where they engage with all of this information and systems. After the technical pillar, we have the business acumen pillar. Now, that encompasses a lot of things as well. I like to think of it as understanding how a business can make money or lose money, or how operations typically run from one organization or business unit to the other. And understanding that can help you connect the dots later with technology as well. Then there's also the context of people. So now that we understand there's different business units, how it makes money or loses money, we use that into context of understanding the language we use in communicating. We're going to talk to leaders a little bit differently than we're talking to the first line employees. We're going to talk to marketing and sales, maybe a little bit different than IT and service, right? We got to use their language and understand their pain points from their perspective, as well as delivering our solution from their perspective as well. Then finally, that's how really it all comes together, whether you're presenting a demo as a solution engineer or conducting a business discovery. This is where the business acumen really comes in handy, along with the technical acumen. Finally, the last pillar is the industry pillar. Now, I like to think of this as that's what really gives you that niche expertise, that additional context on top of business and technical, that really helps you serve as a technical advisor. It earns you credibility in the room that you're in and allows you to be in a position to really provide the most value possible to the customers you're working with. So that will often include knowledge about niche regulations or understanding different customer values or priorities based on different industries that you may be working with. Now, if you're a prospective solution engineer, you're thinking about entering this role and you're thinking, wow, I got to sharpen up all these three different pillars to get into the role. Not necessarily. Obviously, the more you have, the stronger of a candidate you are. But I wanted to highlight my experience. I came from a non-traditional background. I didn't have all these three pillars honed or perfected. And the other note that I wanted to hit on is these three pillars aren't really something like check boxes that you can check and say, hey, I got all three, I'm good. I could be a solution engineer forever. Even after you become a solution engineer, you really constantly have to hone these three different pillars. You got to keep the foundation strong. There's constantly new developments in technology. So you really have to keep continuously learning the new things coming out and be at the forefront of that to help your customers as well. Same thing with business, same thing with industry. There's a lot of regulatory change happening day in and day out, as that also sometimes tries to keep up with technology paces. So definitely think about these three different pillars, what hold that career up as something you continuously work on. If you're just getting started, find your strengths and really hone those, because that's what will give you the differentiator as a potential candidate. And then keep in mind the things that you need to continue honing to take your craft to the next level as well. So now that we've talked about the definition and the anatomy of the solution engineering role, let's dive into what a day in the life looks like. And I've taken specific days of my life as a solution engineer for my calendar, so I can go over them with you just to give you an idea of how the day-to-day looks like in this role. All right, let's take a look at a day in the life of an SE. Now, this is more going to be like a week in the life of an SE. This is taken directly out of my calendar. My events are anonymized, of course, but just to give you an idea of a given week here in my solution engineering role. I also color coded this. I'll explain as I go along. Let's just start with Monday, coming off the weekend, going to work. I'm starting off with some admin work. This can typically be timesheets. It's including time or putting in my time spent in specific projects, or it could be just cleaning things up for organizational purposes, HR related, maybe sign new documents, whatever. Admin specific work, just kind of like an umbrella term here. Then followed by technical work, could be an internal meeting, like a one-on-one, collaborating with other SEs, typically related to a customer. I've color coded these events as blue, so it's typically some sort of technical type of work or demo building related to some deal that I'm working on. Next, there is some training and development. We'll have this every now and then, and sometimes in a very regular pattern. Some trainings are required monthly or quarterly, just depending on the nature of the role and the type part of team you're in. Now I'm demo building again. This could be, again, a different deal that I'm working on because I'm juggling different deals at any given moment. Then I'm taking some time to create some reusable assets. I've worked some deals. I've noticed there's a pattern. I've noticed there is a specific need that's evolving or coming out based on specific customers. So I think, hey, why not just create some reusable asset, share it with my organization, and help other SEs work more efficiently as well. Then there's a short customer meeting here, and I know my visual of myself is covering this, but the last three over here is another internal meeting specific to a deal. This could be meeting with my sales counterparts. We're strategizing. We're talking about the next calls that we have or the different touch points that we're planning for different discovery of different teams, for instance. A little bit of demo building and another internal meeting, perhaps with a different sales team for a different deal cycle. On the next day, I'm just going to brush through these just to give you an idea of how you feel once you're into it. An admin section just to put all my stuff in order. Customer meeting, nice and bright and early. A team meeting to check in with the team. Now, again, here's the reality of it. There's going to be conflicts. You're going to be pulled in different directions. Prioritization is going to need to take place. In this scenario, I had a lot of time dedicated to technical work and development and research. And for really big deals or really strategic type of customers or large enterprise customers, it's a very complex type of solutioning that often takes just a lot of time to unpack and wire up. More internal meetings, more customer presentations that perhaps I was preparing for the day before, right? And demo building to get ready for this one. And then there's also networking calls with third-party partners, perhaps an organization that's also helping us with the consulting. So sometimes we get to collaborate and come up to the technical solution that we want to provide for a customer. My Wednesday here is very busy for a very specific customer. While it may seem simple, hey, this one single block, that's a lot of work going in there behind the scenes. As you can see, Wednesday was all blue. So it was all customer related work between work just myself plugging in, doing technical work versus some work with my colleagues, whether it's sales or collaborating with other technical architects or solution engineers. Towards the end of the week here, I'm doing some more technical work. I'm creating reusable assets, doing perhaps internal networking, different meetings for different deal cycles, just to make sure everything is in order across all of the deals I'm involved in. Wrapping up on a nice Friday, touching up with some different deals and meetings and creating reusable assets. At this point, you kind of understand the different types of activities I'm doing throughout the week. Doing a Friday customer presentation, perhaps I'm doing an internal presentation to my peers. If you're coming in as an SE with a specific domain expertise, perhaps outside of your product domain, you can be in a position to help bring up others as well and help enable the proficiency and literacy of others who speak to different technical topics. And then finally, we could wrap up the different meetings. Oh, for conference demos. So we have a lot of conferences, of course, and in the tech world, there's a lot of conferences where different technical companies can come and do their own product demonstrations. And this specific one was me just meeting with my colleagues who were planning to travel out to that specific conference. We were all going to do demos for different products and different storylines. So this was just to meet up, get trained on it. Hey, here is the demo. Do you have any questions? Let's get well versed in it. So we make sure we present a 10 out of 10 experience for the customers coming to the conference. Now, is this a typical week? Not at all. Weeks and days look very differently in and out. There's a seasonality to it. So perhaps it's a typical week for this type of Q1 or Q2 or wherever this week was coming from. My week can look different. If I am indeed traveling to that conference, my calendar will really be booked with perhaps customer calls, meetings, travel. I'm in the airplane, right, in the airport, going to Uber, getting places. Then there's also different type of travel where I'm not traveling for a conference, but traveling to meet a customer, to do on-site workshops, on-site presentations, on-site discoveries, getting our hands on, just meeting face-to-face and getting a different perspective from what you can get from just an online call. So that was a day or a week in the life of an SE can look like. I'll wrap up this video with some of the great traits of the great SEs that I've met in my career, and we'll take it from there. All right, let's talk about traits that make great SEs. There's obviously no one trait that makes great SEs, and no two SEs are the same. And the type that this role is really unique and we understand the anatomy that it requires for it. No one person is born with a specific affinity or talent to one of these pillars, like we talked about in technical, business, and communication. These are all very learned skills. It's something you build up from scratch. It's something you can learn. If you don't have it, you can get it. However, the greatest SEs I've met, they have a theme of these two traits, a variation of these two traits that I've noticed just from my networking, from my learning, and from my time on this job and in this role. I love networking with SEs. I love seeing how they work. I always see something that's creative and unique, something that I've never thought about in doing, whether they're presenting or the type of questions they're asking and the discovery. And I always take these mental notes. I'm like, I kind of see what they did there. I'm gonna add that to my toolbox. So this is really the point of this section, talking about great traits of SEs, is just to use my experience and what I've seen to help give you a landscape of the kind of traits that the greatest SEs I've seen have. And there's two branches that I kind of compartmentalize that into. One, there's authenticity. Now, as I mentioned before, you're not really born with the things that make you great SE. All these things can be learned. But with the authenticity part is when SEs bring in their innate strengths. So different SEs just have an affinity for the technical. They've worked on their business, they've developed it, they've learned how business runs, how to do discoveries and how to do demos, but they just have a knack for the technical, and that pillar is just stronger than the others. As how they use their authenticity and relying on their innate strengths to make their day-to-day life and customer meetings and internal presentations just unique in that sense. So how does authenticity really come to life? So mentally picking on different SEs that I have mental notes of. It could be something like creativity. Perhaps in a past life, you're a photographer or an artist, or you just come from a role that requires creativity and you have that honed up a little bit more than others, above average relatively. And the way that you bring that into work can be really valuable. So you could be the best SE in terms of like the most visually stunning demos, most captivating visuals in your presentations to really make the idea hit home. Perhaps your personality is just more of a curious one, and you authentically bring that into your work where you're just able to take discovery meetings one step further every time. And the more that you get into the heart of project or deal cycle, just the more information and insight that you have to move forward. Empathy, of course. I've known a lot of SEs who've come from roles like social work or healthcare, where empathy is just a need to have on the job, or they're just empathetic human beings, no matter their background. And the way they bring that into the work can also be really valuable in building their brand and how they communicate with customers and develop key relationships in terms of moving things forward and building up their network. Just being empathetic makes them a magnet for attracting conversations, or just people want to be around them because of the way they make them feel or their positive energy. So I like to group that really under authenticity. All those different SEs, they're really just bringing who they are, bringing what they value, bringing their innate strengths and adapting it to what's required of this role. The second branch of things of what I see in common in every great SE is communication. There's no great SE who's bad at communication, right? That's a must have. And of course, something that can be built and developed and tweaked. But some of these greatest SEs I've seen, they're just great storytellers, right? Or they have a knack for speaking very clearly. They got this, no matter how complex a concept is, they're able to break it down into a way that's consumable by different audiences. Or there could be just the way they present and the way they captivate in their engagements. They don't say more than they need to. If they can say something in 7 words, or they can say the same thing in 3 words, always use the 3 words. They just speak very concisely. Let the room breathe a little bit, invite questions, invite curiosity, letting the audience and the way they think and comprehend kind of lead how their presentation goes. There's just really cool ways I've seen people communicate and present and run a presentation, run a conference room. So really, to distill that down, is just greatest SEs are great at distilling information, whether it's boiling it down a concept or distilling information they're receiving. Maybe they're getting a lot of information thrown at them. They're able to just distill it down to the root. And those are the 2 branches there that I can think of at least the umbrella traits, if you will, that encompass the different traits that great SEs bring to the table in their day-to-day role. Solution engineering can be a very versatile and rewarding career path. Today, I talked about my take of what the role is and the anatomy of what makes up the solution engineering role. Next, I'll be talking about how to land your first SE job. I'll share about how I made my first transition into the role. I'll talk about different career paths that can lead into solution engineering. And I'll cover some basic overview points of resumes, LinkedIn profiles, interview tips, just to go over the basics of what to expect and how to stand out. Before then, I'd love to hear from you. What else would you like me to talk about for the SE role? Let me know if you find this content helpful or if you'd like to engage with different content, like written content that you can download and engage with that way. What else have you learned about the SE role that you'd like to share? I'd love to know if anything from today resonated with you or if you have any specific anxieties about the role or pursuing the role. I'll be responding to your comments as they come in, and I'll take whatever feedback you may share into planning future content or videos. Thanks again. Till next time.